first order of business is the election of a chair. The floor is now open for nominations for someone to chair tonight's meeting. Someone to nominate someone to chair tonight's meeting.
And only Councilor,
What is my name?
I'm gonna sit back. Sorry, what's this sort of note?
Councilor LaCava has nominated Councilor Harris. Are there any further nominations? Is there a motion? Councilor LaCava moves to close nominations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Only one person nominated. All in favor of
Aye.
Councilor Harris. Councilor Harris, you are the chair pro tem.
Thank you.
You want me to take attendance,
Okay,
Madam Chair?
Oh.
Okay. Randall LeBlanc. Counselor Kathy Ann Harris.
Present.
Diane P. LeBlanc.
Present.
Christine A. Mackin. Counselor Joseph P. LaCava.
Present.
You have 3 present, 2 absent, you have 1.
Councilor Diane LeBlanc moves approval of the minutes from the meeting of 1/22. All those opposed? Ayes have it. New items?
New items. The first new item is a West End commuter vehicles resolution that was submitted by Councilor LaCava and others.
So I gave a few words on this last week. It stems from actually, this is many years in the making in the West End. Began with a few residents who are here in 5-2 and Lower Cedarwood, in terms of the traffic that's supposed to be on the main arteries cutting through the neighborhoods. Specifically, in that instance, would be coming off 120, Route 20, 117, cutting through, headed over to South Street, but there's a lot more to it. We went in front of the Traffic Commission in December of 2017 before I was sworn in, but I was invited from Garrett Marchese, who preceded me, and from that they asked us to have meetings with the community to get data in. After the 128 rotary, that connection was done and that was presented, we felt it was time to now kind of go through. With that being said, Bill Doyle has come today, and I would like to make a motion to have him an off-committee member.
All those in favor? We've heard the sense of the motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Mr. Doyle, if you don't mind giving us a little.
Thank you, Councilor LaCava and Councilor Mackin, who's not here, and all the other councilors for hearing us tonight. Like Mr. Councilor LaCava said, yeah, we've been at this for actually for it's longer than 3 years, because we've had some community meetings over in our neck of the woods, which is kind of Lower Cedarwood and Cedarwood. For probably the past 8 or 10 years, we've been getting together. We've had the mayor come a couple of times to some just local coffee table meetings. Previous Councilor Marchese has come and kind of guided us and said this is the process that we would need to go through. And then in the last election, Joey helped to bring it to the next level with Councilor Mackin. And what it is it's a frustration in our neighborhood, and it's not just Matt and I on the one road we're on. It's most of the entire neighborhood, both Cedarwood and Lower Cedarwood, the West End. Not exactly sure what the definition of West End is. I think we'll understand more of that as we get into a study. But I think you kind of maybe all do or don't know my background: civil engineer, planning. I've been doing this type of work for a while, so I can kind of see the intricacies of it. But I also know that there's a process for how to get through this and how to do it the right way and how to get the right planning in place. And what we're noticing essentially is. Waltham is continually growing, continually changing, and we have gone through changes in the past 10 years and change in the past 3 or 4 decades from being a industrial community based in the downtown area, from the mills and everything that were down here, to now a lot more industrial and office and research out on 128. We've seen traffic rise in the whole region as as the business and the population from Boston expands, as any city metropolitan area does. What we've noticed in that, and it's not just our neighborhood, we'll see this in a lot of the different neighborhoods, Warrendale, you'll see it in a lot of different neighborhoods around the city, is once our main streets become congested to a point, people will start to find easier ways through neighborhoods, through the residential neighborhoods. Now, there is a hierarchy of streets in every community. You have your highways, 128. You have your then those get down to smaller roads like 117 and Route 20, kind of your main streets. Then you have your secondary streets. Then you have your residential streets, and they kind of go in that pecking order. You wouldn't put cars coming off of 128 directly into a residential road. You can't do it. You have to have those secondary streets and the main streets and secondary streets in between, because you'll end up with exactly what we have, cut-throughs. People cutting through, you have traffic going 65 miles an hour trying to go into a 25-mile-an-hour road. I mentioned that drastic, situation because that is essentially what we're doing in all of Waltham at varying levels. We have main streets that are dumping onto roads that used to be 20 miles an hour, 25-mile-an-hour roads. And what's happening is that volume and the speed is trying to fit, that's supposed to be on a larger road, is now weaving its way through communities. Again, this is happening throughout the town. We've noticed it, particularly on our streets, but several streets through the Cedarwood area, of people coming off of Route 20, weaving in through Cedarwood and Lower Cedarwood, Nippermar Park and everything, to get over to South Street, to get over to Brandeis, to get over to the commercial spaces over there. Brandeis is only going to get larger. The commercial areas over there are only going to get more populated. So we're just going to see the problem get worse. What we are proposing, what we would like to propose, or what we have proposed to the Traffic Commission, which is why we're here now, is because Traffic Commission said this is great, let's see if we can get a larger support. The past, what we've been doing in the city, I feel, and I think there's some evidence of this, is placing signs: do not enter, right turn only, no traffic between this hour and that hour, small fixes. Which ends up being, especially when it comes to signs, it ends up being, the sign doesn't fix anything. It's the added police in that area that then have to monitor that sign to make sure that whatever we put the sign there for is being adhered to. We presented some of those ideas to Traffic Commission. They said, look, I think it was the chair, Officer McPherson, said, look, we've got to stop looking at this as piecemeal. We've got to look at it as a whole. What would it take to do planning in this whole area in light of the work that's happening on Green Street, in light of the work that's happening on Stowe Street? That's going to drastically change how this neighborhood operates. So, how do we get to looking at a larger master plan of this area? What is that area? West End. What we would like to see come forward in the sense of the resolution that Mr. Acaba made last week is the idea of developing some type of RFP, going out on the street and getting some planners, some traffic planners to come in and take a look at not only the residential neighborhood that is the West End, but also where is the traffic coming from? Where is it going? What major streets are involved? What minor streets are involved? What new work is coming out on 128, on Green Street, on Stowe Street, and how does that all dovetail in to alleviating the cut-through traffic, slowing the speeds down in the residential neighborhoods, putting the traffic, the cut-through or the main traffic back on the main streets and the residential traffic back on the residential streets, all with an effort to simply just make our neighborhoods safer. If we can do it in the West End, if we can do it in the Cedarwood and Nippermar and Lower Cedarwood area and make those residential roads and those residential streets function as residential streets again and minimize, I understand we're a city, we have traffic going through, we need to keep that flow, minimize or eliminate that cut-through traffic on the residential streets, keep that cut-through traffic on the main arteries and the main roads, I think we can go a long way in making our residential neighborhoods a lot safer, a lot more valuable to live in for, as residents of Waltham. So our sense, that's kind of the sense, that's where we are, that's how we feel down in that area, and that's kind of the sense of what we're trying to get this, RFP or however the process goes.
Councilor Mackey.
Present. One more item. Is anyone recording this meeting? Could they please identify themselves?
Chris Gamble will be recording this meeting.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I knew you were there, I would have stood someplace different.
Okay, whatever.
So, Mr. Doyle, presented it a lot more pleasantly than I, and he put it down to it, so, that's really where we're at with this. We'd like to bring something forth to the Traffic Commission next month and kind of let them go forward with putting on an RFP, and that's what we'd like to, go forward with that.
I have a,
Oh, I'm good, yeah.
thank you.
I
Mackin.
Thank you. I did want to note that, of course, we're aware that the city did do a master traffic plan in the relatively recent past. The reason that we're asking for this additional study is that there are a lot of circumstances that have changed fairly quickly. And I know in Ward 7, we're gonna see a huge impact with, as you referenced, the Green Street project and with Stowe Street getting dead-ended. And my concern is that's likely to be a pretty substantial benefit to a lot of people in my ward, but I wanna be sensitive to pushing cut-through traffic even further into the city. And I'm hopeful that getting a traffic study done now that focuses on this residential neighborhood can supplement some of the changes that were recommended in the original traffic plan that focused on intersections and main streets, so that we can really get a good picture of like the day-to-day impacts on the people of Waltham and not just on the main arteries that we have. On top of that, I think it's valuable to have a really up-to-the-minute picture right before or possibly when we start doing this massive project, so that we can try to understand where we're at now and what impacts are directly resulting from that, so we can grapple with some of those downstream impacts as the resolution said. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Councilor LeBlanc.
Thank you, Councilor Harris. Mr. Doyle, thank you for being here for your presentation. You're certainly well known to the traffic engineer. And, to the councilor who just spoke, to the point that we've just done the master traffic plan that, the city had, council had called for such a long time, and then finally would have it. And this does sort of pull together a lot of the little pieces of that, and it sort of builds on a lot of the work. But this proposal, the traffic engineer, he is expecting this?
I think he is, because when we met at Traffic Commission that time, it was McPherson and Mike Garvin, traffic engineer, were kind of talking about how it would come about.
Okay.
That was a year or so ago.
Yeah.
All right, I mean, I think, again, it really does make sense, right? And I think our approach to a master traffic plan, right, the first one the city ever had, to look at the major arteries was probably the right thing to do. But eventually we've got to get to looking at the neighborhoods, right? So this then could be a model as we moved around the city, right? How do we really make an impact? So what do we need to do? We need to approve the resolution and vote it out? Is that what we need to do?
That is what, if we are.
Second time around, Councilor McCollum.
That is what I would like to do, absolutely, if we're in agreement, if we like that. And to answer that question you asked Bill
Yeah.
a few seconds ago is, yes, the traffic commission asked us, they wanted direction from the city council as a whole, not just through, through that date with some residents. They asked us to go to do this, get something on paper and to come to them with
So does the
direction.
resolution have one resolve or there are two resolves?
There's currently one.
So we are voting out an approved resolution, which means there will then be nothing left on the docket of this committee, right? So there'll be nothing left for us to follow up on, right? Is that what we're doing? Is that your intent? or are we voting out of request? Mr. Clerk, what do you think we should be doing?
What do I, you're asking me my opinion?
Well, so here's
I think you're better.
here's the
Please.
predicament.
Yeah.
We can, I mean, if the action is to approve the resolution, and I think probably what the traffic engineer and the commission wants is an approved resolution, right?
Absolutely.
Approved by the whole council. And you probably wanna call for a roll call, right? Approved by the whole council, and that's a good thing. Just understand that you now have nothing here in
To
this
bring them
committee.
back and ask them, yeah.
If, I think your wish is to discharge it from this committee with a recommendation to approve
Yeah,
to the city council.
that is what I would wish, absolutely, and I,
Okay.
to Council Bliss.
Yep.
Question, yeah, I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but if we need to bring something back in, I would like to move this along and then come back and have to do another resolution, we get it, bring it back, but I would like to push.
On the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You guys have it?
All right.
Motion-
Thank you.
resolution
Thank you.
approved.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for your time tonight. Thank you. I hope he heals quick.
Yes, yeah, we got a ski trip planned, so gotta get back out by February vacation.
Is Councilor?
I was just gonna go look, that's what,
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to take from the table the resolution on composting. If you guys don't have that in front of you, I do have it here, but,
Councilor Mackin wishes to take from the table the composting resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
thank you.
Councilor Mackin.
So, having had several discussions on this and, working closely with the other at-large counselor who was absent tonight, we would like to make a motion to divide the question and to send,
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can you ask who is we?
the absent at-large counselor and I in discussion. So I guess I will make a motion to divide the question, thank you. And that division, what we would like is to take, the yard waste, leaf composting, sticks, those things, and send that back to the full council, because we see that as being separate from the residential. I see that as being separate from the residential food waste composting question. So the discussion that the absent counselor and I had was to ask if it could be sent to the Fernald Reuse Committee to see if there's a parcel of land up there that we could use for the leaf mulching process, which doesn't generate a lot of odor, doesn't attract rats, might be a good fit for that place, to send it over to them for discussion there, and then to keep the residential food scrap composting here to continue looking forward for that. So, if I make that motion to divide, we can continue debate, right? Alright, I make the motion to divide the question as described.
It's now divided.
On the motion.
On the motion, Councilor LeBlanc.
On the motion, I'd like a status on the matter. I did sit in, first off, I think that this is an important matter. I support composting in the city. I think it has benefits. I want to see us go in this direction. I sat in on at least one of the meetings where the CPW director was in. I heard part of that conversation. I heard some questions asked. I don't know that we got the answers back. I think I recall something getting voted out of this committee. Maybe a request for an RFP to be issued. So I guess before I vote to split anything and send it anywhere, I'd like a real clear status on the questions that have been asked and the answers that have been received to date. So perhaps somebody could give me that.
So, this committee did vote to send a request to the mayor's office to ask her to ask the purchasing agent to do an RFP. And that request has stagnated.
I'm sorry, what?
It has stagnated. It's stuck, to put it bluntly, it's stuck in the corner office.
May I ask what the RFP was specifically for? Was it for a specific type of composting?
That is my understanding of what the problem is that I did not do a sufficient job of defining what it was I was looking for, and so there were some questions as to what exactly it was that I wanted, which is why I had these follow-up conversations, and I apologize for not making that clear during my first statement. So I think if we divide this question tonight, it to a certain extent obviates the existing RFP.
You mean RFI?
RFI, was it an
Yeah,
RFI?
RFI.
Am I getting it wrong? Thank you. It obviates that RFI and it gives this committee a chance to take a second look, possibly clarify what it is we're looking for, while we simultaneously move forward. And the at-large counselor could speak a little bit more to the leaf mulching situation. He knows more about that than I do, and it's, he did fill me in, but I'm just not enough of an expert to reiterate what he said to me, so.
Councilor Madden.
I know I'm not being clear.
Do you wish to withdraw the request that has gone to the mayor for the RFI in place with this
Yes.
question?
You can't withdraw.
No, that's already
You
done.
can't withdraw.
Okay, so
Never
I'm
mind.
just trying to, so that stays forward. So then then what you're trying to I'm trying to clarify what your question is, because we're talking through. So then you're basically making a request to split the prior resolution into two matters.
Yes.
One, we're gonna need the request in writing, but I'm gonna state what I hear you
Yes.
declaring the heart of that to be. One is a request to send to the Fernald Use Committee the matter of composting leaf and, I guess, leaf yard pickup debris
Yes.
for exploration of the Fernald Use Committee, possibly handling those materials up there
Yes.
under a composting plan.
Yes.
We're stating what the requests are, then I will definitely come back to you. The second part of the request is to leave in this committee the composting of household materials and explore that further here in committee.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. And
On the request?
Yeah, see, my recollection is that I don't know that this was a legitimate split of questions asked in the resolution. When you split a resolution, you've got resolves, right? And you have be it resolves.
Right.
And you're sending, you say, okay, I had 3 be it resolves. We're gonna keep 2 of them in this committee and we're gonna send 1 of them off.
Right.
And
Right,
so
so we're
maybe,
saying-
could I see a copy of the resolution? Does anybody have
That's what we need to do,
They
to
can
split
send
this effectively. I'm with you, I'm stating what we had, unless we have a copy of that resolution. That is the work that needs to be done in the request. It doesn't necessarily need to be done in this committee. We can talk to it from a
Yeah.
resolution standpoint. Do you have it, Councilman?
I do, and there's one be it resolved, but there's a further contained within it. So the be it resolved is,
Can you state that for the committee and for
Yes.
the notes, please?
yes, that the Waltham City Council encourages the city's Public Works Department to evaluate the cost and impact of a municipal composting program, and further, that the CPW director and a representative from Black Earth Composting be invited to speak before the council. So, we're a little bit afield from that original resolution, and if the committee feels it would be best to bring in a clean resolution, and possibly file this one, I'd be open to doing that. At this time, I'd rather make a motion to table, because I think I would rather not go forward without speaking to the other original co-sponsors and clearing it with them.
You've heard the sense of the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those
There'll be
opposed?
a motion.
Thank you for your help and guidance.
Thank you. What is the status of Councilor Morgan? Okay, so. Councilor LeBlanc.
I'm gonna move to take the 1725 street opening for 172 Lyman Street off the table.
All those in favor, say
Aye.
aye. All those opposed? Councilor LeBlanc.
Mr. Attorney Francis, you were here.
Councilor LeBlanc moves to
Yep.
hear from an off-committee member. In favor, say aye.
You were here on that matter.
I am.
And
Counselor is not.
Mr. Chasen, you were here.
Yes.
Not for you to point out.
Oh,
from
okay, I thought you were asking, I'm sorry.
No, but thank you, I have eyes. But Mr. Chasen, you were here
Yes.
on that matter. And you had some travel issues.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And it was the ward counselor who had wanted to connect with you on this. It's been 2 weeks since our last committee meeting, right?
Yeah.
Has the ward counselor reached out to you to get any questions answered, to connect with you on this matter?
No.
Okay, so I was hoping that perhaps maybe any questions or concerns had been.
Councilor LeBlanc, Councilor Nebeline
Perfect.
is here. We're just waiting for 1 second. She comes into.
And she's right here.
The chair, thank you. The chair recognizes the ward councilor. We're looking at the matter here before us, 1725 street opening of 172 Lyman Street.
Director,
Jason is here, as
Hello.
well as the attorney for this.
good to see you. So I have, the questions I have for you are, what are the implications of opening that street up again? How does it impact your department? I know your recommendations, but as we know, there's a 5-year moratorium, and I, as I've already recommended very strongly to this committee, that the only thing that I would see as a median is if we have assurance from the petitioner and National Grid that if this is opened up, it will be done in 2 to 3 days.
I don't know about schedule, but usually 2 to 3 days seems reasonable, but I have no basis for that information. What their timeline will be or what they'll encounter when they do. But impact to us, we'll have anytime now National Grid is out doing stuff, we have an inspector that goes by and checks it. He follows up. They won't be doing, I'm assuming someone else will be doing the road. So that whole process probably won't be 2 to 3 days, depending on.
The petitioner said it would be, no more than 3 days.
With paving, and if they have flowable, they can't do flowable fill over a gas line, National Grid won't allow.
I'm sorry, National Grid won't allow what?
Flowable fill. For gas leaks, it pushes the gas leaks into different directions. It makes it tough for them to find the leaks. At least that's what National Grid tells us. So 2 to 3 days from start to finish with final paving and infrared if it's requested. That piece won't happen, but final paving without the infrared probably could be done in that amount of time. Overall impact.
I'm sorry, could you, I don't understand these terms. Could you clarify what infrared is?
So infrared is after the work is done, there'll be 2 seams left that go from curb to curb. They'll infrared those seams after the fact to seal it, to allow so that there's not a crack there for water to get into, which will expand and contract and form potholes.
And are these standard requirements for repaving?
It's standard to what the council has asked for over the last few years. Not in the ordinance, but above and beyond that.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, all right. Okay.
So, I mean, other than that, impact to the road, as long as everything, it's under, for a year, if anything happens, they'll have to come out and fix it. you know, for those 3 days, we'll have a guy that comes in and checks a couple times a day. He'll oversee the final paving, make sure that's all done. Compaction, National Grid usually compacts pretty well.
So it's kind of just like a year's warranty?
There's a 1 year, National Grid will come out, but if they're not doing the final patch, there's typically a 1 year warranty on that patch.
Okay, and who pays for the city inspector? The
So-
petitioner?
No, the city's inspector gets paid by the city, and that's his duties.
Oh, okay, sorry. No,
You-
because I was
no, no.
thinking it was extra
No,
work
no,
to
it's
go
just,
and look
he's
at.
a city employee that
Okay.
does it.
All right, and what else did I want to ask you? So, how long was Lyman Street in the condition that it was in before you repaved it?
Oh, I don't know the previous date of paving. I can get that for you, but
Okay.
I don't have that right in front of me. I don't know. Hmm,
Long time. Maybe on the
Yeah,
bridge one.
I wouldn't guess, but
So yeah, I'm just thinking.
Okay, sure.
So you're saying that it's not feasible to get everything done to over and beyond in 2 to 3 days, like the petitioner said. So what are we looking at realistically?
so I said the infrared is, they have to hire a separate company that will have to come out and do that. You know, typically can be done within a couple weeks, depending schedule-wise. But the roadway will be back to normal, and when you do the infrared, you know, we've had it done a couple months later, and it's, you know, that doesn't overall affect the actual paving, so.
Okay. And I'd like to request a history of the 1725s from this committee and how many were allowed, and pretty much going back maybe 2 years, if I can request that now. Do I request that from here or from the clerk?
Just to clarify the request, you're requesting,
The same exact request by the petitioner
Oh, that has to make a request.
to the chair?
okay, so one of those, that actually has to be made by someone on the committee, and I'm going
Oh.
to recognize Councilor LeBlanc and maybe somebody else. Councilor LeBlanc.
the ward counselor asking for?
She is requesting a history of rulings on 1725s for the past 2 years. What have we done with them in committee? Typically approved them or typically denied them?
Or maybe, sorry.
So, I can tell you that the council, the council has, I believe, approved all 1725s except one,
Yeah, no,
Right.
it was probably more than 2 years.
Arcadia.
Yeah.
Since the moratorium is 5 years, may I request 5 years back?
Yeah,
So how do I get a record of these, maybe dating 5 years back?
I mean,
I mean,
you.
the more years you go back, the longer it's gonna take me to do it, so.
Exactly.
I don't.
It's a request of the clerk's office. You could bring in a resolution to ask for it. You could get somebody on this committee, you could get a member of this committee to make that request on your behalf. Again, I only recall one over in Ward 3 being denied, right? That's where it was?
I mean, I don't know all of them,
Yeah.
but that's the one that stands out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one more thing for the clerk's office to research if somebody wants to make that request.
I am
Councilor
willing,
Mackin?
thank you, I'm willing to make that request. I think, as a new member of this committee, and with us taking a look at that 1725 overall and possibly doing away with it, it would be useful for me to see. So, in writing, I can make the request. I, and Counselor from Ward 6 please let me know if this is consistent with what you want, but I would like 2 years of 17.
No, I'm sorry, 3 years.
3 years, okay, that's all right with me. I feel like that's a reasonable compromise between 2 and 5. 3 years of those, with the date that the public hearing was held, so that hopefully those of us who are interested can go back and find the minutes, so we can get more details rather than you pulling all of that information. And then, if we could get, I'm sorry to interrupt my request halfway through making it and making it hard for the note takers, but the question I have is, where do the,
But Councilor Mackin, you will be submitting it,
Yes.
so you're talking it out right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Where do the conditions the council puts forth get recorded? Like, where do we go to find those and look them up?
It's on
They're on
the orders.
Okay.
You want every, you want.
That's what I go to find out what's
Sure.
required.
Where do the orders,
They go in a can.
Every counselor receives a copy of the order.
Yes.
Before you vote on them.
okay, but are they available for like public access anywhere? Like, do the orders get posted somewhere that's not the council's packet?
Yeah, they get put in a can, fine. That's what they got.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of a compromise that's somewhere between give us all the orders, and we would like a representative sample, because honestly, like, these things really should be documented online somewhere where people can access it, and I don't wanna make you go sit and spend 40 hours or whatever digging through a pile of orders to find these specific ones. So I guess, I can ask the off-committee member, Counselor from Ward 6, do you have a compromise that you'd be willing to accept on this?
Has the floor.
I know, so maybe I'm reading this.
What, is there a compromise on the number of orders that you would be willing to take
Can I ask the
for
chair, make a
representative
suggestion? Can I make a
sample?
suggestion?
Yeah,
You're asking for 2 years of statistical analysis.
yeah,
You,
agree.
and, look, we're gonna vote on it, so let's just state what we're looking for. Instead of going down to the order level, you're really just looking for the addresses and the locations that came before this committee, and what was the outcome? Were they voted up or down to be approved or not?
Is that consistent with your request? Okay. In
On
that
the
case,
request.
yes, I would like to restate it, just for the
Okay,
record.
sure.
So we would like a statistical analysis of 3 years of 1725s with the percentage that were approved and the percentage, well, the number that were approved and the number that were denied. Is that everything?
Yes.
Great.
Just 1 second.
That's the request.
Thank you,
Now I'll shut
Councilor
up.
Mackin. On the request, Councilor McCollum.
So, I get, I feel like this is taking a turn to the 1725s in general, so I'm trying to get over this. We're here for Lyman Street, and I wanna keep it to that. So, in this, 2 weeks ago, we were trying to get all our questions out. You did a good job with the councilwoman just did a good job with Steve Gonzalez, getting anything she could have done then out of the way. Are you waiting to see this data before you are gonna be comfortable going forward with Lyman Street, or are you going through 1725s as a whole now? Because I wanna keep this to what's in front of us, because we're asking, I feel like the petitioner is kind of being used as an example in this case, and I don't want that to be the case. I do believe 1725s are an issue, we've all kind of stated that, and that's before us separately. So I wanna make sure that this petitioner is treated fairly in terms of his case.
Thank you.
And being your ward, I don't wanna disrespect you on that, so I wanna make sure we're focused on what we're doing here.
All right, so then let's go back to the 5-year moratorium. How has that been enacted?
I believe
When it
the
comes to-
counselor, that last time I left, stated, there's been one that hasn't gone through, and as over the last 3, since that has been put in place, and everyone has done the conditions that have been put forward by this committee, and they've enacted them, and we've gone forward to.
So, Councilor LeBlanc?
Thank you. If this request is put forward at this time, I will be voting no on it. To the Ward 5 councilors, the point, I think we need to, this petitioner has now been back to several committee meetings with all due respect, to make sure that the Ward 6 councilors' questions were answered. With regard to the broader issue, I think there is going to be plenty of time to drill down and get all of our questions answered, because it is a big picture thing. With regard to the specific question, I'm 99.9% sure that we have denied one, and that's it. With regard to the date and the conditions, any counselor who wants that can do their own research. All of the dockets for the last 10 years are out online. Go through them, look at the dates, see the 1725, see the public hearing, read the minutes. You can find them. You can find them all out there. For the last few years, you can find your electronic documents. You can get everything that you're asking for in this request. So I'm not gonna approve another onerous request on a very limitedly staffed clerk's office at this point in time when they're already fighting to keep their heads above water. But I do want to move approval of this particular 1725 street opening with all of the conditions that are typically put on a petitioner, unless there is a reason not to.
I have another question for,
Just a second, that motion's out of order because there's a request before us. So
Okay.
We're
Yep.
looking at the request, and I need to dial this back just a little bit.
Yep.
There's a request
So-
on the table, not endless debate, a
Yes.
request on the table for additional data. However, I want to just ask the ward councilor just a couple of questions.
And
Again,
I'd like to reiterate the request
Thank
before
you.
we vote on it, just to be
Yep.
completely clear.
yeah, let's do that.
So the request is for 3 years of 1725's, the addresses that came before this committee, the number approved and the number denied. So we're not asking for all of the dates, just the addresses. And the numbers. I'm not asking.
Councilor Neville, is that request clearly stated?
yeah, you already clearly stated it, a couple of minutes ago.
So we need to be clear because we're gonna take a vote on it. We're gonna take a vote on it.
Yep.
Councilor Neville, we're gonna take a vote on it. So Councilor LaCava on the request.
Did you have some before, did you have questions?
I'm gonna follow the vein of the request and rein this in.
So again, to Counselor from Ward 6, without this information, are you weary of approving?
Of course. My constituents have been through so much on that street. It's been repaved, and if we cannot get a specific timeline from the petitioner, the director of public works said we're looking at weeks. So unless we have a concrete timeline that is just fair to my constituents,
Okay,
and I highly recommend that, I believe, I don't know, Director, is a petitioner fined for every day they go after the time they said they would repair the road?
No mechanism for that, for
No mechanism?
non-paving. I didn't say they wouldn't pave it, I said the infrared would be a piece that probably wouldn't be able to be scheduled on an exact day, from when they start, within the 3-day time period. But the road, I think, can be repaved in, at least that week.
Do you have a structure in place for fines for
This,
incomplete roads, left in shambles? I'm just asking.
So, there's a mechanism, but most times if it's going through, there's a process in place, yes. I don't know what the fines are. We have, at the worst case, pulled bond and had the bond company hire another company to come out and fix the trench. But we've never had anyone just not pave a trench.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, Councilor LeBlanc.
Yeah, so this request provides absolutely no information relative to how timely the work was done.
Is that a question?
I'm asking, so is there anything in this request that provides information relative to how timely the work was done?
Nope.
So then I fail to see how this request provides additional information related to this particular petitioner. That's it.
Thank you. What is the wish of the committee?
Yes, to vote on the request.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm requesting a roll call.
Oh, okay.
Roll call? Okay. Randall J. LeBlanc is absent. Kathy, no, not yet. Diane P. LeBlanc.
No?
Christine A. Mackin.
Yes.
Joseph P. LaCava.
No.
Motion does not carry. So
May I
now,
have the floor again? Ah, okay. Well, I don't have anything else to say, so I yield it back, sorry.
Good job.
so on this 17, let's go back to the scope for us. On this 1725 street opening for Lyman Street, 172 Lyman Street, what is the wish of the committee? Councilor LaCava.
Again, I'm trying to make this fair, and I'm really trying to respect the council from Ward 6 here. So, being that we feel like that information was put forth while it was not in was not in writing, we believe that the answer was given to you. And if that came in writing at that 1/17/25 was not approved, would that have sufficed what you were looking for?
I'm not going to answer that because you voted no. So you will not know what I'm asking for, but I will strongly recommend that the 5-year moratorium be considered in this case. So thank you for having me. Excuse me.
Thank you. Councilor LaCava, you have the floor.
Make a
What is
motion
the-
for approval.
You've heard the
Point
motion.
of parliamentary inquiry. The motion for approval is simply to send it out to the full council, and we could take further action there. Is that correct?
Yes, but it would go to the full council with
The recommendation.
in the committee reports, it would be an approval, seeking an approval out of committee.
Okay, thank you.
You've heard the sense of the motion by Councilor LaCava. All those in favor? say
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Roll call.
Councilor Randall LeBlanc is absent. Councilor Diane P. LeBlanc.
Yes?
Councilor Mackin.
No.
Councilor LaCava.
Yes.
Does the chair wish to vote?
No.
If you don't vote, the motion will not carry.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. It's 3 in favor. The motion carries.
Thank you.
You have to announce that.
So the motion carries. Thank you very much.
I understand both sides of
What is the wish of the committee?
it.
Councilor,
Done.
Make a motion for
move to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.